So, did any of you see Mia? Huh. Huh. Who? You don't know her, right? I knew I wasn't going insane. How do you know that name? She's the same person I was with earlier, before I saw you two. It just came back to me. I don't know where she went, though. What? What the fuck is going on? What's with that reaction? Don't you see she's just delirious? She didn't die, but I have a pretty good idea of what happened to her. Say, did you hallucinate someone? That's not it. That's not just some name she made up. Do you know this person then? We do, but Erina couldn't have seen her. She couldn't be here. Are you sure? She could have entered through the storeroom. She could have even traveled from the future, since the Sekimeiya is bound to be exposed to the outside world. That's not what she means. She's not anywhere right now. Oh, she dead? Wait, Mia, you said? No, she's with us. She has red hair, right? Mia's hair was red. I recalled Akro's voice from the time he'd lost some of his memories. What he'd said almost implied that he knew what happened to Mia and what we'd gone through. Did you actually see her? What did she say? She told me her name, but she didn't look lost or anything. She knew me too. She just suddenly ran away and I haven't seen her again. I definitely thought I hadn't seen her before, but I honestly wasn't sure. What? Is Mia here? Is she alive? Are we going to succeed and save her somehow? As soon as I felt hope building up, I tried to contain it. That didn't make sense. Why would she have been in the tower? Why would she not have shown herself? There was no way Mia was nearby or anywhere. I don't know how to interpret this. Did you all agree to make up the story from when I appeared? Shut up. Well, I'm trying to figure things out myself, and I thought I was close to understanding quite a bit, but now there's a bunch of shit I don't get, and it doesn't feel great. I didn't ask, but it sounded like you wasn't only talking about the sudden appearance of an unknown person. You did mean she died, right? Is saving her with the Sekimeiya not an option? Sai, shut the fuck up. If it was, I promise you that we would have done it. Once again, there was silence. Shiria looked pensive, but I had no clue what was going on inside her head. I basically understood nothing about her. I couldn't assume that Erina had just hallucinated because she knew Mia's name and appearance, but I also couldn't accept that she was inside the tower. Did Erina just lie? How would you know about her, and why would you do that? It's probably been close to 15 minutes already, right? I'd say so. Sai looked at his watch. Yes, it's been almost 15 minutes since I arrived. Are you sure I'll go far enough back? She died at around 1400, right? It should be enough, yes. I understood the lies, but not the heartless way in which he was deceiving a mother into thinking she was close to saving her daughter. It had probably been 15 minutes already though, so Erina would travel to the past if we didn't stop her. That's strange. Once again, if she's about to travel to the past, how come her past self hasn't already appeared? Of course seeing her future self should be an impossibility, but why would she have decided not to show herself? You say that, but that's just not true, is it? You have, that's the thing I think that's pissing me off most about Atsuki. There was one single time, where he thought he might try to change the past, and a door got shut in front of him. And ever since then, he's believed it's absolutely impossible to change the past. It's definitely not happening. He's tried it once half-heartedly. Does the fact that it could be a coincidence that the door got shut at that time not even enter his mind? And he's saying all of that. Seeing her future self should be an impossibility. That's something he's not even tried yet. Okay, I'm going then. Are all of you coming with me? No, but don't worry, we're far enough from you. Sai stepped back a bit anyway. I understand. Well, goodbye for now. Earlier, Sai had travelled after storing energy for 15 minutes, the same amount. That time, I hadn't travelled despite having been next to Shiria, so I knew how big the range would be. I stepped back too to be sure I wasn't included and wouldn't travel away from Shiria. In a solemn manner and keeping her gaze on us, Erina reached for the Erina reached for the Sekimeiya with her left hand. When she touched it, there was a change. Huh? What? Wait, what? None of us could understand what had occurred. Erina hadn't travelled. Sai had. Why didn't it work? Did Sai disappear? Was everything that he said a lie? I couldn't fathom it. What had happened defied everything we'd learned. Shiria and I had been pretty close to Erina, but going off Sai's previous travel, the range shouldn't have been large enough to pick us up. We'd been further back than Sai, but why had he been the only one to travel? And what I'd thought earlier still applied. Where had his past self been all that time? Admit it, did you ever want me to save Isla? Were you involved in the first place? You're wrong, we don't know how the Sekimeiya works, but this shouldn't have happened. I don't get it. Is it all nonsense? Can we not figure out how it works because it just does whatever it wants? It's been pretty consistent up until now, so what's this shit? Why did Erina not travel, but Sai did when he was out of the range? There's even another instance. The first time I traveled, I went 20 minutes back, meaning that the Sekimeiya had to have been storing energy for 15 minutes. At the time, Sai was the closest person to me, and he was pretty much the same distance he was from Erina just now, but he didn't travel then. Oh, I'm misinterpreting it. That has to be it. I assumed I knew what the range was since the conditions were identical to Sai's last travel. I didn't travel that time, but Shiria did, even though she was next to me. That led me to think I'd been just barely out of range and that only she had been included. But that wasn't the case. I was also in range and I didn't travel for another reason, just like how Erina didn't just now. That's what I thought. Something prevented me from traveling, and it just did again. And Sai was the only one who did. Just earlier, I told him that I'd seen Shiria disappear with him. He must have realized that I hadn't traveled, so since he'd set up the same conditions for Erina's travel, he felt safe at a slightly further distance than I'd been from him before. However, he just fell victim to my own misinterpretation. The previous time the range had been big enough to encompass me, but I hadn't traveled. And in the last travel, the four of us might have been included while only Sai had disappeared. What was the reason? It couldn't be that only two people could travel anymore. Was there anything that would make sense? Wait, where did it go? I quickly looked up and saw Erina's desperate eyes. She was staring at her purse. It's not here. I've been wrong. Sai hadn't been the only thing to disappear. The Sekimeiya also had. It teleported. I'd experienced it for the first time. The infamous teleportation we'd constantly thought about had shown itself to us. Erina's travel had activated it, taking Sai away in the process. I remembered what had happened just minutes prior, so I took a few steps forward. When I was in front of the cabinet, I crouched and grabbed the bottom of the curtain. I raised it violently and kept it from falling again. Behind the glass was the Sekimeiya. It had travelled from Erina's purse to its initial cabinet. Atsuki, tell me, what do I need to do to travel through time? Exactly what Sai and I told you. I don't know why it didn't work just now. And since this confirms that it can actually teleport, there's no way I still have the Sekimeiya in the locker. In fact, the teleportation must have caused the illusion from the start, the other Sekimeiya. I'm not sure how it happened, but I bet it was the same one every time. Why is Sai not here already? Did he think of using the time he gained to do something? He must have gone about 20 minutes into the past, so he might have thought of a better course of action than rushing in as soon as possible. Realizing our confusion was sincere, Erina's face went pale, and she would have fallen backward if the wall hadn't been there. Three towering questions just presented themselves to us, challenging everything up until this point. 1. Was the range really the same as the last time the Sekimeiya stored time for 15 minutes? 2. Why was Sai the only one to travel? 3. Why did the Sekimeiya instantly teleport away? Regarding the range, we can't know how it actually functions. I've assumed it only starts to expand when time begins to be stored, but what if that's not the case? Could it also increase while the Sekimeiya is in the cabinet? Or what if the range from previous travels persists, for example? The second is the most confusing one. Erina, Shiria, and I haven't traveled. There's no way we weren't included in the range, is there? At least not Erina, who touched the Sekimeiya. But it only worked for Sai. There is a reason why we were excluded, but is it reasonable to think I can figure it out? What does this do to the concept of range? Now, how can we be sure such a thing exists? Perhaps there's no range at all, and something else entirely determines who's included in the travel. And finally, why did the Sekimeiya disappear from Erina's purse? It's impossible that happens every time it's activated. It didn't disappear when Sai and Shiria traveled. Without a doubt, this is the strangest travel so far. The three questions might all be connected to one single misconception. What are we supposed to do? How am I supposed to understand this thing if it keeps breaking its own rules? How can I ever even hope to use it for anything? Can I not save Isla? Why did it not work? Oh, of course. What was I even thinking? Traveling to the past isn't possible. You lied about it since the beginning, right? That's why it didn't work. It can't happen. I actually fell for it. I was too lost to answer. Something had happened to Erina, that was for sure. She just witnessed Sai's disappearance, but was accusing us of lying. It seemed that trying to explain ourselves wouldn't be much help. Just wait here, I'll be back in a second. Before she could react, I moved to hallway B. I needed to check the staff room. The locker where I'd hidden the Sekimeiya was directly to my right. I unlocked it with the key and opened the door. The Sekimeiya wasn't there, only the pants and the coat remained inside. I closed the door and locked it again. I see. Shiria was right then. The other time it did teleport away from Naomi's locker. In hallway B, I saw Shiria waiting for me next to the event room. Did it disappear? Yes. What else could have happened? I couldn't deny another person might have also had the key, but while I had room to construct a theory that didn't involve self-teleportation, it seemed pointless to do so. Had someone put another Sekimeiya in the cabinet after having entered from hallway A, and while we'd been in the event room, they'd taken mine out of the staff room? There was no way. Nobody else had been involved. What did you want to do? I'm just intrigued by Sai's whereabouts because an extra version of him has existed somewhere in the past. Did we never see him in so many hours? So many hours. Right, she thinks Sai might have appeared before Isla died. In reality, he went back about 20 minutes, if that's consistent. Although she just went from saying time travel isn't possible to thinking it is again, she's more unstable than I thought. I'm not sure, but he has to be somewhere. I was a little frustrated by Shiria's continued silence. She was definitely thinking about what had happened, but she might have had information I wasn't aware of, and nothing she had revealed yet. The three of us were going over our thoughts when suddenly the door to the lobby opened. There you are. What were you doing? Something was strange and it immediately became apparent. Sai had shown up from the lobby, so I was relieved to know that he wouldn't be missing for too long. He, on the other hand, looked completely different. Oh, what the fuck? I'd never seen him so confused. He tried to have the upper hand in every situation, but his face told the truth. He couldn't comprehend what he was seeing. From his point of view, something was very wrong. Who the fuck are you? How are you here? From the event room, a door opened. After everything that had just happened, when I saw who came out, I barely reacted. What's this girl doing here? Those were the first words I'd heard from Akuro in hours. Recognizing the person who shared his bewilderment, he stepped next to Sai while the three of us looked at each other in case someone understood what was occurring. Aski, now you have to answer. Who is she? Are you actually acting as if you don't recognize me? Of course we don't. Well, no. Of course we do. Aren't you dead? Again. Shiria's fate is death. I need to say it, I've always wanted to and I can't believe I never will. I love you. Nightmarish memories split my brain in half. It seemed like the world was abandoning all sense, morphing into something completely repulsive. Me? Why would I be dead? You too, Erina. I thought you died. What? Isn't that what you said earlier? Earlier? What the hell are you talking about? Before the conversation could escalate further, I had to ask a very important question that had been repeating throughout our imprisonment. Sai, what time is it? It's 1843. 1843. That was about 20 minutes behind the real time I estimated. That meant that after traveling, Sai's replicated location had been off 20 minutes prior and his watch hadn't stopped working. Why? Did she time travel? No, I didn't. He's right though. Are you a future version of Erina or something? What? Well, you're not dead after all, but we felt your pulse. In any case, I figured you would have come from the future. What even happened to you? I can't remember much. I think someone hit my head and I fell unconscious, but I don't know what happened before that. Yeah, that's about what we know too. Sorry that we can't be of more use. I was losing it. I was about to explode. What the fuck was happening? Was it all a joke deliberately constructed to destroy me? I don't get it either, but I'm glad you're safe. This means you're not guaranteed to end up dead, but you... What even is your name? How did you get here? I've been here since the start. That's not true. It was the same thing. In the attic, an Akaru who had shown himself, who'd claimed to only possess partial memories of what had occurred. Had Sai been a victim of that as well? Hold on though, your name, I think I might actually remember that. Shiria, was it? My memories are a little foggy. She nodded, speechless. I thought so. Like I said, I thought you died. As you can see, I'm alive. You have a twin by any chance? What? No. But then, it doesn't make any sense. I'm still really confused. What the fuck do you mean you're confused? She just showed up like that. Did you enter through the storeroom? I've been with you since 9, Sai. That's a load of crap. Regardless, you'll definitely die. I'm sorry to tell you like that, but you're not making it easy for us. Atsuki, I know you know her. I do, and she's telling the truth. Are you just fucking with me? What's the point of lying so blatantly? He's telling the truth. Shiria's been with us the entire time. The entire time? Not even you have been here since 9. Excuse me? Well, you get what I mean. You don't remember when you got attacked or where you came from very well, right? Of course Eren and Isla have been here the whole time, but not you. It was settled. They had either gone completely insane or their plan was to make us go insane. After being told once again that Shiria's fate was sealed, I continued to search for a method to refute it. Oh. What? I turned to look at her, but I couldn't make heads or tails of her expression. Her eyes fixed on a point in the distance, and that was all I knew. It had become a challenge just to know what anyone trapped in the tower was thinking. Did you notice something? I need to go somewhere. What? I'm sorry, I need to go to the attic. She ran toward hallway C. There I stood, petrified, until she turned around to say one last thing. Please don't follow me. I could only stare at her eyes, in search of any compassion. Why was she being so cryptic? With an apologetic look, she turned around and dashed off. Please don't follow me. Why? Why had she wanted to go alone? I might have looked devastated, but I was only trying to decipher the sudden change of behavior my oldest friend had undergone. Wow, are you going to just let her go? Didn't you see how suspicious that was? Well, that's fine. She's just gonna get herself killed somehow. It's already unavoidable. Why? Why is she gonna die? Did you hit her head and lose your memories? We know it'll happen. How? You seem pretty certain, so prove it. No, we can't anymore. What the fuck does that mean? Akira looked at me as if he was witnessing a man who'd gone mad. What's with that look? Where did you even go? You just appeared again out of nowhere. It's you who appeared again. I hit the wall, furious. The responses were making my blood boil, like they were sneering at me. You too, Sai. Did your memories also happen to get fucked? You traveled from the event room, remember that? From the event room? No, I didn't. I don't. Have you two just lost it completely, or is this a side effect of the Sekimeiya? You can stop trying already. Since you sided with that girl, you made it clear you'll only spit out bullshit. I don't know what you're trying to pull, but you look pathetic. She'll come back whenever she feels like, if she doesn't die in the process. Meanwhile, let's keep waiting for the shutter to open. I'd appreciate it if you told the truth though. How did you get in? She was with us from the beginning. That's false. Since she seems to be with you, I really doubt you were stupid enough to make her enter through the storeroom. That's what's strange, but perhaps you did. Let me see. Indifferent to my confusion and rage, Sai walked to hallway C. What are you doing? Instead of answering, he entered the storeroom. Seconds later, he returned. I just wanted to verify that she hasn't entered through the storeroom yet. What? Have you thought of a plan to keep the Sekimeiya for yourself? Then once you succeed, you'll eventually make her go back in time to appear inside the tower and finish off whatever your plan requires. What are you even talking about? Maybe 2 of you weren't enough, I don't know. If that's what you did though, you must have known you were sending her to die, even if she was already supposed to be dead. I don't exactly get what your idea is, or how this all came to happen. It's very confusing. When you say two of you weren't enough, who's the other person you're referring to? Again, what the fuck are you talking about? What does maybe two of you weren't enough even mean? Thanks, Atsuki. Of course, I'm assuming Mia's in on it as well. I gave up. I approached the nearest wall and kneeled next to it, only capable of breathing. It was incomprehensible. Nonsense. Not gonna keep trying to clear your name. I suppose it'd be futile with how obvious it is that this is your doing. Okay, I'll ask. How do you know about Mia? Well, she's been here. That's it, ignore him from now on. He can't get out of the corner he's backed himself into. I covered my eyes with my arm, applying as much pressure against my face as I could. Who had decided to make me go through hell, and why had Shiria left me behind? Letting out a casual laugh, Sai sat next to me. And you're going to follow her? It seemed really obvious that you gave her some kind of cue to leave, you know? She just got this blank look and suddenly had to go. Was that all you could come up with? I gave you a little bit of credit earlier, but honestly, what happened to Erina could definitely have been your doing. I pushed Sai aside with as much force as I could gather. If my mind had already broken, he was doing all he could to scatter all the pieces around. That's harsh. I suppose that's the only way you can defend yourself. We'll see what your plan amounts to soon. Maybe not, actually. Maybe we'll just never see that girl again. At least not alive, of course. Sai, I swear, if you open your mouth again, I'm going to fucking break it. I get it. Let's wait as much as you want. My vision was dark, partly covered by my arm. Standing up were Akuro and Erina, whose expressions I couldn't see. Beyond the meaning behind Sai's words and Akuro's appearance, I couldn't get my thoughts of Shiria. Why had she left like that? She hadn't even promised me she'd return. I tried not to let Sai's voice loop in my head, but there was no stopping it. Was she going to die? Would I write that note? No, neither of those would happen. She wouldn't just leave like that if she thought there was a chance she would die. There must have been a good reason behind her actions. Don't kill me, but hasn't it been a long time since she left? What do you think she's doing? Be quiet. Listen, she looked at me as well when she said not to follow her, so I'm being considerate by staying behind. I was just wondering if you had any idea. Sai was the least of my concerns. I barely put any thought into punching him, but before I did I saw a conspicuous smile all over his face. It only faded momentarily, returning right after the blow. He didn't say anything, but he positioned himself back at my side. While I couldn't see him, his mere presence felt disgusting. Not a single part left of me felt able to continue reasoning out what was happening. All I knew was that the last travel had been different and that it must have led to Sai's behavior, having been the only affected person. But even though I felt stuck, I couldn't stop time from ticking. Every second I spent sheltering myself from reality was another one I spent thinking that Shiria might never come back. Eventually, my attempt at calming down bore some fruit. Up until then, she and I had been making our way through the events together. The version of her that had just gone up had lived things I wasn't aware of, so she'd known that following along would have been a bad idea. However, what could she have gone to do, and why had she not explained it even vaguely? She'd just left. She'd gone to the attic. The Sekimeiya was in the event room, so what could she have wanted to do up there? Do you remember anything else, Erina? I don't think so. I think I might have an idea about who attacked you now. Huh? I wouldn't want to get killed though. Atsuki, sorry to bother you, but who do you think it was? I don't know. Not even the slightest idea? What, are you going to say it was Shiria? I would never say that. However, she's the most likely suspect, isn't she? She isn't. Why the fuck is he saying that? Because she could have traveled to the past and done it? That's bullshit. How is she more suspicious than anyone else? Hey, I know it could have been anyone, but it'd be a bit strange if it wasn't her. Although I only figured you weren't guilty because I thought you wouldn't be so stupid. So that makes sense. I don't think she could have attacked her. I do. After all, isn't the reason you think she couldn't have done it using what Atsuki said as a basis? Wait, you're right. Atsuki, tell me the truth. Was that what you did? Shut the fuck up, I didn't do anything. Erina, I have a question. Did you kill Shiria? That would explain almost everything. No, of course not. Right. I wonder, could this have worked? Every time I heard any of his words, I reinforced the thought. Listening to him was pointless. Not a single thing he was saying made any sense or had any value. Earlier he tried to kill us, but he had refused to tell us why. After undergoing a sudden change, he was acting aggressive toward me. Was it only because he'd seen Shiria, who he didn't remember or thought couldn't be alive? What about Akaru, who hadn't been anywhere for hours? What were they talking about regarding Erina? And how in the hell did they know about Mia? Had the Sekimeiya just created an absurd mess of events and memories? I wanted to know what had happened to Shiria and everyone in the tower. Sai's behavior toward me was miles different from how he treated me at the beginning, but he'd always operated logically. I wanted to know what had caused the immense change, but arguing with him was impossible. There were too many things I wanted to understand. Questions hadn't stopped appearing since 9, and each one was more complex than the last. With the little time we'd left, there was no way I could be optimistic and think that everything would magically be resolved. What Shiria and I had gotten ourselves caught up in was out of our league, so I tried to push everything that didn't directly involve us away and focus on what I most wanted to decipher. Shiria had gone to the past with Sai, probably about 20 minutes. However, an extra version of her had already been in the tower for much longer since I'd seen her in the event room. Despite not knowing that Shiria had lived, it was reasonable to assume it had happened in the attic, which had been locked and out of my view. As such, she'd realized she had to go there. Wait, I'm not sure if this is strange, but it could be important. Please don't follow me. Yes, like Sai said, she told that to everyone, but she was especially looking at me. She didn't want me to follow her. However, how would I? I can't enter the attic. She's the one who could have the key for it. The way she looked at me, it was like she was telling me that if I followed her, I could have hindered whatever she wanted to do. But she was already in hallway C. If she really wanted me to not come along, all she had to do was use the elevator up to the attic and I'd have no way to chase her. So what does that mean? She thought I could have followed her to the attic, and if I'd just run behind her, that's the impression I get. If I'm right, all that means is that I can enter the attic and that she doesn't have the key for it. Incidentally, somehow she knew it was unlocked when I know it wasn't just minutes ago. I'm sorry, but I can't keep staying here. Shiria, maybe you've already accomplished what you wanted to do and I won't find you up there, but I need to find out what happened. What time is it? Is this all the time you needed to give her? Let me see, it's 1908. The recent time had gone by fast. The shuttle would retract in an hour and a half, so I could only strive for a simple goal, to be with Shiria when it happened. If you plan to go to the attic, don't think we'll let you go alone. I stood up, ignoring him. He didn't hesitate to stand too, and it seemed Akro and Erina were getting closer. Should we take the elevator? Do you have the attic key? What? Of course I don't. Just go to the 6th floor and enter it. The elevator arrived soon after I'd called it, showing it had still been on a higher floor. When I opened the door, the other 3 each took a step forward, showing they'd come too. Sai, you are out of your mind if you think you're getting in the same elevator as me. Back off. Going to make me walk all the way up? Awfully rude of you. My glare extended to Akaru, who I also refused to be close to. I knew he could have overpowered me if he'd wanted to, but he'd also kept backing up the fact that Shiria would die, so I'd fight him even if it was pointless. He shrugged and moved aside. We'll see you there then. Hopefully we find her easily. That's fine. We'll make sure she doesn't come back down for the stairs. If we can't find her though, know that keeping quiet won't suffice. I didn't look at Erina, as I had nothing against her. She entered beside me, looking just as lost as usual. When the door closed, I pressed the floor 6 button and waited for the elevator to begin moving. We'd arrived faster than the other 2, but I wasn't sure if we were going to find anything. Sai had mentioned that the attic's door would be open, so he might have been the one to leave it like that, if I could actually trust anything he said. Erina was at my side next to the buttons. While I was leaning back against the opposite side, more questions than I'd thought might have surrounded her existence, but it was no time to think about them. For some reason though, she had reined in her hostility toward me. What? The elevator stopped abruptly. It couldn't have been going too fast, but as it ceased all movement, it propelled us upward and we slammed to the floor. I felt my right hand burning. I looked at it and saw a cut. What? You're bleeding. I could only process the intense pain coming from the wound. While I couldn't comprehend how it had happened, I understood that I had cut my hand with the handrail when our bodies lifted, as it had been right above me. Blood poured out and pain poured in equally. Overwhelmed, Erina tried to open the door. What? We stopped on the 3rd floor. I'd left the situation already. Had we been intercepted again? The vast amount of blood leaving my body prevented me from thinking about it, and instead I started to feel disoriented. Nobody's here. I didn't press the button either. We need to stop the bleeding. We could use something from the attic. No way, it hurts so much. Fuck. It wasn't too deep of a wound, but the bleeding would take a while to stop. I wouldn't pass out from it, so all I could think about was the intense pain. However, the one thought that came to me was what I needed. I had to get rid of the wound. It hurt way too much to spend the entire remaining time without medical assistance, and I needed to have a clear mind. I could accomplish that. I only had to travel back in time. Perhaps the pain blinded me, but without a second thought, I dragged the door inward and pressed the button to go back to the first floor. What are you... Her voice cut off and I began to descend. It was fine, I'd only take a detour. After I got rid of the ridiculous pain that wouldn't let me think properly for a long time to come, I'd go up to find Shiria. I could even go earlier. The single requirement was the Sekimeiya. I had to activate it and replicate an earlier position of myself without the wound, retrieving all of my lost blood in the process. I had to do it quickly so that there wouldn't be many possible locations to replicate after the wound. The doors opened, so I dashed out of the elevator as fast as I could, forcing my eyes shut to suppress the pain. I ran to the event room, a fair amount of blood dripping off my hand. I knew I'd have to wait a few minutes to activate it, but that was necessary. However, since I clearly didn't know much about how the replicated location operated, I could only hope it would actually work. I felt the room was a bit colder than before. I uncovered the curtain. Yep, I figured that was going to happen. Why? It wasn't there. Behind the glass there was only a crimson cushion, and the glass wasn't fully shut, which cooled my face while I stared in denial. Fuck! Do I have to search for it? Sai, Akira, even Shiria, they all could have taken it. It was alright, I tried to tell myself. I would have had to wait a few minutes before activating it. Since someone had gotten it out of the cabinet for me, I'd just have to spend that time searching for it, as energy would have already started being stored. But desperately searching by myself sounded ridiculous. I wouldn't stop losing blood anytime soon, making me more and more tired. If the pain refused to fade, there was no way I would be able to tolerate it until 2100, on top of everything that was going on. I closed the glass and nervously stepped into hallway B, where I still found no trace of anyone. Slowly, I'd begun to perceive two things. The strange smell felt very strong and prominent. I wasn't sure that meant anything, since I still didn't know where it was coming from or what it signified, but that time it felt more noticeable than it had on previous occasions. The second thing was a thought. I knew I must have looked like Erina had, so I'd found myself suddenly coming back to something she'd recently said. That's nonsense. I'm going to the past so I'll prevent Isla from dying. She'd completely refused Sai's claim that the past couldn't be changed. My mind might have been clouded, but I started to doubt my past conclusions, feeling that Erina's words might have held some weight. I wanted to go back to the past, so what if I changed it? Would the universe really not allow it? I'd been working under that assumption, but that thought was what had become ridiculous. Thank you, Atsuki. Finally! If I actively wanted to change the past, there was no way I couldn't do it, and I didn't particularly mind trying it. I entered the cleaning room and scanned it with my eyes. How would the universe stop me from changing what had been decided? I wanted to find out. Many things around me pointed at the fact that Shiria would die at one point, and even though she was alive, she had left me in the dark on purpose. If I could deviate from that reality, I would. Fortunately, finding out if it was possible felt fairly easy. I looked at the crystal room B6, but the sheer number of cabinets was dizzying. I didn't have the strength to inspect all of them, so I backed off towards the staff room. When my mentality hadn't been to alter the past, everything had played out as I'd once lived it. I wanted to see what would happen if I consciously attempted to alter the past from my actions. I'd already tried it once, but how could Sai's and Akira's words make any sense? Weren't their realities completely different from mine? Had they travelled in time and morphed the events they remembered? Was that why the effect had only worked on them while the reality I knew was completely different from theirs? By the way, I'm not saying you definitely can change the past in this reality. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying he's come to the conclusion very quickly without doing much testing at all. So I'm thankful he's doing that now. If it turns out the past can't be changed after some thorough testing, I'm fine with that. I couldn't tell if I was deluding myself or somehow not making sense, but I felt like I must have been able to change the past and that it had happened to other people while we coexisted in a single timeline. What would the point of time travel be anyway, if nothing of consequence could come out of it? Perhaps it would complicate it all even further, shaping everything into more of an incomprehensible mess. But why would I care about that? I'd be able to change things anyway if that were the case. Not attempting it was stupid. I could only open 2 lockers, so the task was far more bearable than checking inside every cabinet. I was already staggering, so I had very little hope of finding the Sekimeiya before I couldn't continue. I opened Naomi's locker, but the Sekimeiya wasn't inside. The other one was locked, so I took out the key and unlocked it. In the top compartment was the Sekimeiya. I didn't care how strange that was. Had it teleported back? How could I know? I only wanted to use it so that I could think straight once again. As I was holding the key with my left hand, I extended my right one, mixing the pain of the wound with a burn that made my sight warp. I was at the start of hallway B, looking towards C. Huh? What? I stared at my hand. The wound was still there, but next to no blood was pouring out of it, and it didn't hurt as much. I saw the scar that it had left though, which would likely persist for many days. Furthermore, I felt very tired, but my mind was clearer. How's this possible? Why do I still have the wound? What time even is it? I began to walk toward the event room to check the time, but voices stopped me. I got close to the door and focused my hearing. Just suddenly ran away. I honestly wasn't sure. I recognized the conversation. I'd arrived approximately a couple minutes before the point only Sai had traveled. To interpret this, did you all open the door, Atsuki? I retreated and went to hallway A through the lobby. Why would you not just open the door? That's the whole thing you want to test. Can the past be changed? Open the fucking door. God damn it, Atsuki. The computer screens were still lit, so I walked up to them to check the exact time, trying to avoid the blood on the floor. 1854, precisely what I'd estimated. For a short time at least, I could try to experiment and gain some form of knowledge. No matter how small, feeling like I could trust my judgment a bit better than before, I stepped out and went over what I'd been thinking. What if I open the door to the event room? It's completely in reach, and if I do it, I'll be changing the past. Yes? I was intrigued. I had to accept that nothing made sense to me. Given what I'd deduced, I shouldn't have kept the wound. I knew I was operating on many misconceptions. If I tried to change the past, the result could have pointed me towards a more accurate direction. But it was scary. Did paradoxes exist? Would the world crumble if I changed what I'd already experienced? Who cares? Open the damn door. Perhaps the universe was pressuring me into accepting what had been decided, but I didn't feel like the pressure was strong enough. I could just make any change, and what I felt was preventing it was only myself. However, I didn't want to go too many steps up. Perhaps I could change the past if I really wanted to, but what if I altered my own past actions? I would never end up traveling, so thinking that my existence could be immediately overwritten wasn't a ridiculous fear. How could I attempt to change the past while making sure that I could still end up traveling in the same way? In a few minutes, Sai will appear in hallway B from the lobby, while Akra will suddenly show up from hallway A through the event room. Preventing their arrivals could still be too big of a change that might deny my travel from occurring. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I had nothing else to alter that I could be sure I had definitely changed. It was very reckless, but I wanted to try it nonetheless. I wanted to understand what had happened to Shiria and to all of us. And although it sounded very dangerous in theory, I felt no risk in play. The thought of one of my harmless actions freezing or eradicating the universe simply didn't seem right. So I had an idea. A sound. To start off, I could produce a loud sound I knew I hadn't heard. If I managed to make it happen, the past could be changed. I walked up to the storeroom so that I'd be able to flee. I still didn't want my past self to see me, as the chances of a paradox occurring would certainly increase if it happened, and the single thing I wanted to know was whether reality could be reshaped. I twisted the knob on the door and pushed it open. It was fully in my reach. I could slam the door and originate a considerably loud sound that hadn't previously existed. Was the universe about to black out? I'd shortly find out, as I really intended to do it. I was using my left hand since the right one still hurt. Perhaps the impact wouldn't be as strong, but there was no way it wouldn't be heard throughout the entire floor. I remembered Sai's words in the event room. The past can't be changed. He'd gotten to the same conclusion, but had he tried it himself? There was no way to be certain without attempting it. Am I making too big of a deal about this? I'm just going to make a sound. I was hesitating. Was it the universe's prediction that no sound would be heard? Feeling controlled, I moved my arm without thinking. There, that's it. This is a new noise, one that we didn't hear. I had to run away. The world hadn't frozen and I was still alive. However, all that meant was that my existence was not a paradox. Letting my past self see me had an inherent problem. He'd know he'd end up traveling and doing what he'd seen, cancelling out the freedom of my own actions. However, that wasn't necessarily the case anymore, as the past version that could see me wouldn't be me anymore. He would be the one who had heard a sound I'd never experienced, so he might not have ended up traveling like I had. I ran toward the stairs and quickly disappeared from view. I hadn't edited my memories at all. I still remembered the reality in which no sound had played. I considered how that could turn into a big problem. I could have created a reality in which two versions of myself existed permanently. If I'd separated myself from my past version who was on the crystal floor, he wouldn't ever travel and leave his place for me to occupy, like what had been happening so far. To understand every consequence, I'd have to wait. However, I'd already learned the most important piece of information. The past could be changed if I wanted it to. If changing the events wasn't my intention though, a travel would result in the previously lived reality. I felt a piercing pain and looked at my hand. Running with clenched fists had slightly reopened the wound, and a small amount of blood was dribbling out. If I'd left some behind, it could have made for a trail to find my whereabouts. I looked at the staircase and saw very little blood. The stronger pain was coming back, so I had to cover the wound. I couldn't go back down and use a curtain, and dirtying the attic's clothes might have been a bad idea. Instead, I entered the bathroom at my side, since I figured a few layers of toilet paper would suffice for a bit of blood. Toilet paper was far from appropriate or hygienic to cover wounds, but I had to use what I had at my disposal. I kept adding layers until no more blood could be seen. It took a while, but I managed to make it work. I should probably stay here. I don't know if the sound I made was enough to cause a search on the crystal floor, but if it was, they'll find me no matter where I go. Hopefully it didn't trigger one. However, it's possible that Shiria will still suddenly go up, so if I pay attention I'll hear her whether she uses the elevator or goes on foot. I'm not sure I want to stop her, but I want to know what she went to do. I waited after sitting down and slightly opening the door. It wasn't open enough to see outside, but I hoped I would hear footsteps through the gap. I put my hand in my pocket. I wanted to get rid of the note through the toilet. Strangely, I couldn't find it. It wasn't there, but I hadn't gotten rid of it. I checked all my pockets, but the note was gone. I didn't drop it anywhere, did I? That must mean I didn't appear with it when I traveled. Why though? It was so strange. At least it must have dematerialized for good. Going off what I'd lived, Shiria should have gone up in 2 to 3 minutes, but I had no guarantee that would repeat. It did not. 5 minutes later, the elevator hadn't been used, and nobody had gone up or down the stairs. That was proof of my change. I could change the past. I didn't blame myself for having wrongly assumed the opposite for so long, but I'd proved that if I wanted to and was conscious of what I was doing, I could decide to alter history. To finally know with certainty was both terrifying and exhilarating. Less than 2 hours remained until 2100. The alarm had gone off at about 9:05, so 12 hours later the exit would unlock. Was it enough to try to put things into practice? I still didn't know what consequences would truly come out of my change. Would I permanently have differing memories from the people around me? Would I have to coexist with another ASCII? As soon as I found out, making use of the time travel would become simple. Suddenly, I was presented with a dilemma. 2 hours remain until the front door presumably opens. In about 30 minutes is when I travel to the past, but that might not happen anymore. This means that I could be able to let the Sekimeiya gather power until 2105. I'm not sure how far back I'd go. Leaving the Sekimeiya out of the cabin at 15 minutes resulted in 20 minutes travelled. Just now I went back a little over 40, but I don't know how long the Sekimeiya was in the locker. It shouldn't have been there to begin with. Meaning that I have no clue how much the distance travelled advances each minute out of the cabinet. If it goes at a consistent rate, 2 hours wouldn't make me travel incredibly far back. As it stands, I wouldn't appear 2 weeks ago. But what if I did somehow? What if I could save Mia this way and prevent that entire thing? Would another Atsuki get to live a carefree and ignorant life, unaware of today's events, while I still had to exist? I had to understand how it worked before thinking of applications. If I did something like that, I'd leave behind everything that had happened. That included the note I'd found, Shiria's strange behavior, and everything I'd been attempting to reason out. Of course, the result would more than justify it. I went back to distant fort. Could it be that the shutter wasn't going to move at 2100 so that the Sekimeiya would store enough time to grant a lengthy travel? How would that be accomplished? I was thinking about making the recording a reality just because I'd heard it, but I wouldn't complain about the origin of events if I could achieve it. However, I still understood too little about the Sekimeiya to consider anything like that. Could I know that waiting a month would be enough just because that had been the time I'd heard in the recording? I let go of that idea. To begin with, I had no way of prolonging our stay, and as I'd previously considered, we couldn't survive for that long without food. Despite my important discovery, the recording still made no sense. In reality, not many things did. I could run down through the events and find continuous unexplained mysteries. Had someone been changing reality around us, resulting in inconsistent memories and different pasts? That felt too overwhelming to consider, and there was virtually no way to know if it had happened. The replicated location, the self-teleportation of the Sekimeiya, there were many unknown factors needed to construct a sound plan that involved changing the past. I kept waiting as I wanted to surpass the point I travelled from. Minutes later, I thought that going up might have been a good idea. Someone had to have intercepted our elevator trip on the 3rd floor, and it was very possible my change downstairs hadn't influenced their actions at all. If I went up, maybe I would see them. I saw that blood had stopped coming out of my wound, so I removed the toilet paper and flushed it away. The sensation was very uncomfortable, but it didn't hurt too much. I still wasn't sure how I'd managed to injure myself like that, but if I didn't make abrupt motions with my arm, I could tolerate it easily. I walked up to the 3rd floor. There was nobody in sight, so I wanted to hide. It was possible they would flee if they saw me, meaning that I have to approach them when I knew they'd be close to the elevator. I entered the 2nd partition as I figured a few minutes were left until the time we'd been intercepted. I'd been in the lower bathroom for about 20 minutes, so I'd have to wait a little more. Unfortunately, since it was very unlikely Erina and I would still take the elevator at the same time, I wouldn't have a way to know if I'd exceeded the time. And once again, while time kept passing, the silence gave no hints of the ticking seconds. I waited minutes before moving back and forth between the 2nd and 3rd partitions, waiting for my cue to get out. Wasn't coming. Would I hear the movements if someone was nearby? I felt I was really close to the time we'd been stopped on that floor. I left the partitions. The corridor leading to the elevator was empty. I kept staring at it, but I felt no trace of life. Had the impact of my action on the crystal floor been big enough to remove the existence of whoever had initially intercepted us? I turned around and peeked at the opposite hallway with the stairs leading to floor 2. I felt no difference. If nobody was around, would I have to present myself downstairs and explain what I'd done? Huh? The elevator? I ran back and saw something I thought I couldn't see. That's me. And Erina as well. I remember those movements. From a distance I heard my own yells and saw blood pouring out of my hand. It was repeating. Despite what I'd done, the scene played out just like I remembered it. I backed off, knowing Erina would turn around and see an empty corridor. Then abruptly, my past self closed himself in the elevator and left her outside, puzzled. How's this possible? I know it was a small change, but how is it possible it all still led to this occurring just like I remember it? I stepped out, my footsteps alerting Erina. What? Atsuki? I waved awkwardly and approached her. It's not bleeding anymore. What did you do? I used the Sekimeiya to travel to the past, and this time it worked. I wanted to get rid of the wound, but it simply stopped the bleeding, even though I'm not sure why. Wait, what? There's no way. No way what exactly? That I traveled through time? Yes, how did you do it? By touching the Sekimeiya. What's wrong? Nothing, I'm just a bit confused. Ignore me. I'm happy the wound got better. I was a bit taken aback by her words. Was she the exact same Erina I remembered? Do you understand now why we stopped on this floor? Sorry, I don't. Are you sure you didn't hit the button accidentally? Yes. Should we keep going up? Hang on, what do you remember? Earlier, did we hear a loud door being slammed coming from hallway A? When exactly? About 35 minutes ago. I don't know. My head is still a bit foggy, but I don't remember that. Why are you asking though? Did we hear it? I'm not sure. We must have. It was very strange. Why had Shiria not gone up, but we'd still ended up using the elevator to follow her? Did Erina not remember the sound because she hadn't heard it, or because of her state of mind? Had realities converged? Let's wait a second. Sai and Akira should be coming, right? That's what they said. I want to talk to them. She looked uncertain, but she didn't complain. I began to walk in circles, wondering what to make of the strange result. A minute later, nobody had come. It had been enough time for Sai and Akira to arrive at the 3rd floor. Wait here, I'll be back in a second. What? Explaining myself would have been a waste of time, especially considering the state she was in. I circled down the floors until I arrived at the last staircase, not seeing anyone along the way. Oh, it's you. Through the grey door I saw Sai. He didn't receive me with clear hostility, so I went down the staircase. Where's Akira? Hell if I know. Why? Was that a result of my action? Akira had come from hallway A, where I had made the sound. Had that made him not appear? Are you alone? Aaron is above us, yes. By the way, about 35 minutes ago, did you hear the sound of a door closing coming from hallway A? What? What kind of question is that? Just answer, did you? Yes, why? Something caught my attention. On the floor of hallway C, there were new drops of blood close to drying. Do you recognize these drops? Have they always been here? Oh yes, I saw them before. Are they from that wound? What happened? When Erin and I had taken the elevator, those drops hadn't existed. There were too many of them to think I hadn't seen them. Sai was definitely living in the reality I'd changed, but I wasn't sure the same could be said for Erina. I knew that was my blood and that I'd left it behind when I'd run away after slamming the door. As soon as I'd psyched myself up to alter the past, all my actions must have been allowed to differ from what I'd experienced, including unconscious ones such as leaving blood behind. I looked next to us, and as I thought the other trail of blood was coming from the elevator. It was from the time I'd gone down after suffering the injury. The floor was proof of both realities at once. Are you just not going to answer me? Where's Shiria, by the way? Is she in the attic? Why would she be? What's with these questions? She's not with you, so I figured she might have ended up in an unreachable place. Oh right, the attic is locked, isn't it? It was just a bit ago. But you have the key. That's how you entered it when you were chasing us. Excuse me? I don't have the key, no. You can search me if you want. I don't have it. It was all too confusing. Sai had suddenly gone yet another change in behavior, and just like the previous ones, I couldn't make sense of it. Additionally, it had all become a mess to work out, like I'd feared. I couldn't discern what I'd changed and what I hadn't. Is there nobody else on the crystal floor? There shouldn't be. Let's go up then. Shiria might actually be in the attic. He shrugged and followed me up. On the way, we found Erina, who'd been waiting for my return. She didn't welcome us, and I thought that her eyes looked even more empty than before. She also didn't reply to Sai's carefree greeting, opting to silently follow us. Three floors above was the attic's door. I told you, it's locked. Do you not have the key? No, it's possible Shiria does. Maybe she locked herself inside then. I remembered what I concluded earlier. Had I been wrong and I couldn't have followed her to the attic? No matter what, I felt like Sai had to be lying. He had unlocked the door previously to chase us. Like we'd thought, he could have accomplished it by traveling inside and unlocking the door with our key, but since we'd still found it on the floor, it was very likely another one had been used. If he was telling the truth, I thought that perhaps someone else had entered the attic while Sai had waited downstairs to ambush us. Hey, Shiria, are you inside? Why would you lock yourself in like this? Was he just fucking around while he knew where the key was? Even if Shiria was inside though, why would she have chosen to stay hidden? Do what you said earlier and show me your pockets. Do you not trust me? I suppose I almost killed you. Sure. So he does remember that. Huh? I'm just kidding, of course. Anyway, you can see all my pockets are empty. I sighed and did what I'd done in the bedroom. I felt his clothes until I could be sure that he wasn't hiding anything. Are you sure she couldn't be anywhere else? We haven't searched the whole building, no, but she should still be here. Then she must be hiding intentionally, and there's nothing we can do about that. Maybe she'll come out eventually. Let's go back down for now. I agree. She must not like you very much and prefers to be alone. Wait, no, you're definitely lying. Me? I don't ever lie. We all know that's not true, Sai. You don't have any key on you. That proves you hid them because you should have had the cabinet key. The Sekimeiya cabinets? Why would I? I saw it in your hand before you and Shiria traveled. Strangely though, I don't have it. Check your side too when you go check your hearing. Before I could reply, the three of us were looking at the door. The lock clicked, the doorknob turned, and it began to open. And we'll see who is behind it in the next episode. For now, hope you enjoyed watching. Thanks for doing so, and I'll see you guys again soon. Till then, bye.